Your dad is standing on a dock in Stuart, Florida, looking at a 1987 Grand Banks 42 with a hand-lettered sign that reads $89,900. The teak glows in the evening light. The broker in the polo shirt tells him there is another fella coming to look at her tomorrow morning, so he ought to decide tonight. That $89,900 is the only honest number anybody in that conversation wants him doing math on. At least, that is how the broker needs it to stay. Because the real number, the one that follows your dad home and shows up every single month for the next 10 years, is north of $250,000, and nobody on that dock is going to hand him a calculator. So how does an $89,000 boat quietly turn into a $250,000 decision? You do not add it up all at once. You add it up the way the broker hopes you never will, one line at a time after the check is already cleared. I have walked enough of these docks and pulled enough engines to know exactly what gets left off the napkin. So tonight, we are going to do the math the broker will not. Every line item and real $2,026 on a 40-foot trawler. By the end, you will know the real cost to own one, and you will never look at a hand-lettered sign the same way again. Start with the line item that hurts the most and shows up the soonest, the slip. That boat has to live somewhere, and the somewhere is not free. In South Florida right now, a 40-foot slip runs you $15 to $45 a foot every month. Do that math on 40 feet, and you are looking at $600 to $1,800 a month just to tie up. A public marina down in Miami-Dade will run a 40-footer around $11,000 a year. A private marina with a nicer bathroom and a tiki bar wants closer to $21,000. Move up to the Pacific Northwest or the Chesapeake, and the per-foot rate eases off, but the season gets shorter, and the good marinas have a waiting list a mile long. Plenty of coastal yards have jacked their rates 10% 2 years running, and they will do it again, because they know you have nowhere else to put her. And if your dad wants to actually live aboard, the marina tacks a live-aboard fee on top, $200 to $800 a month, because now you are using their water, their power, and their parking spot. He could swing on a mooring ball for a fraction of that, sure, but then he is hauling himself and his groceries out in a dinghy in the rain and living without shore power. The boat has not moved an inch, yet he has already spent more than he spends on his truck, his insurance, and his property taxes combined. That is not a typo, by the way. The dock is the single biggest check most owners write, and the broker never says the word. Now here's the detail almost everybody misses, and it's the one the broker actively steers you wrong on. Single engine or twin. Walk onto that Grand Banks and the broker will lean on the twins like they're a feature. Redundancy, he says. Resale, he says. Get you home safety, he says. What he's really doing is selling you double of everything that costs money. A single diesel at trawler speed sips under 2 gallons an hour at 8 knots. A pair drinks twice that for the same 8 knots. And with marine diesel running $5 to $6 a gallon at the fuel dock in 2026, that difference adds up every weekend. A single means half the oil changes, half the impellers, half the fuel filters, half the injectors when they're due. When you push a trawler hull just 1.5 knots past her natural speed, you can triple the fuel burn for almost nothing in return. These boats were built to go slow, run her slow, and a single will cross oceans on a thimble. When the day finally comes that an engine is tired and needs replacing, a single repower runs you $40,000 to $80,000 installed. Doing it to twins runs $40,000 to $120,000 and up. And I've watched a $50,000 quote balloon past $100,000 the second the yard touched the stringers, the shafts, and the exhaust. A retired Coast Guard fella told me once how many times he had to go out and rescue a boater limping in on one good engine. Redundancy sounds great on the dock. On your fuel bill and your repower bill, it's the most expensive word in the brokerage. And I'll tell you, I've seen AI boat videos put 2 throttles on the dash of a single-engine boat, and the old captains in the comments catch it every time. For a couple cruising the coast at 8 knots, a single with a bow thruster does everything they actually need for half the money. That tired second engine is a warning sign sitting right there in the bilge. Plenty of buyers step right over it because it looks like more boat for the money. End of the day, every dollar above the waterline is optional. Every dollar below it is not. Anacortes, Washington. A 40-footer comes out of the water on a giant sling because the part of the boat nobody photographs for the listing is the part that costs you. The bottom. Every year or two, that hull has to be hauled, pressure washed, painted, and have the zinc swapped, the soft metal that keeps the salt water from eating your propeller and your shaft alive. The haul out itself is $10 to $15 a foot just to lift her. Add the pressure wash, 2 coats of bottom paint at around $250 a gallon, and fresh zincs, and you're at $2,000 to $4,000 a visit. Seems like a small line at the time. It isn't. Because if the yard finds blisters in the fiberglass, the kind a quick survey skips right over, that bill climbs from $5,000 to $20,000 in an afternoon. In warm water, you're also paying a diver to scrub the hull and check those zincs every month or two. The bottom paint doesn't care how pretty the teak looks up top. And if that sounds bad, keep watching, because we have not gotten to the check that actually breaks retirees yet. For a while, things actually seem fine. Your dad runs her on the weekends. The engine starts every time. The marina waves him in. That does not last, because here is where it gets expensive. And this is the part the broker has spent the whole conversation steering you away from. The big-ticket surprises. A broker friend of mine had a name for what gets done to a boat that will not sell. He called it getting it lipsticked. Rinsed off, repolished, the teak oiled up for golden hour photos, floated back onto the market under a new broker and a slightly lower price, until somebody who does not know better signs the check. And the stuff they oil over is exactly the stuff that empties your savings. Those gorgeous teak decks on an old Grand Banks, when they finally let go, and they always let go, replacing them runs $20,000 to $35,000, and the traditionalist buyers will not pay more for the boat without them. The water that rots the teak runs down inside and rots the fuel tanks under the cabin sole. Mild steel tanks in a saltwater boat are a ticking clock, and replacing them runs $8,000 to $15,000 because the yard has to gut the interior to reach them. Then there is the cutlass bearing, the transmission, the canvas, and isinglass enclosure. That is another $12,000 to $15,000 the day the sun finally kills it. I sat down once and added every real line for a 34-foot Mainship that sold for $40,000. The honest number to own it came out to $12,037 a year. Not the loan payment, after it. That is the kind of number that makes accountants cry. And here is the cruel twist. A nicely kept Kadey-Krogen 42 that sells for nearly $300,000 can cost $3,000 a year to maintain, while a cheaper motor yacht that sold for $100,000 less eats $35,000 in its first 12 months. The cheaper boat costs more. That was only round one, and this is the part where it stops being funny. One owner on the forums hit a year where his costs reached 46% of what the boat was worth the year his exhaust manifolds gave out and sat back, ordered for almost a year at $5,000 a side. He did not do anything wrong. He just bought a boat that had been lipsticked, and the bill came due on his watch instead of the previous owner's. A marine surveyor saw this whole game coming years ago, and he tried to warn people. "Get your own inspector," he said. "Every boat needs a full survey." Almost nobody listened because the broker always has a friendly surveyor. He can recommend a fellow who does a quick 12-page report, finds nothing scary, and keeps the deal moving. That's the surveyor pipeline, and it is built to protect the sale, not your dad. A real survey from an accredited surveyor, SAMS or NAMS certified, runs $25 to $35 a foot. On a 40-foot boat, that is $1,000 to $1,400, plus a separate haul out to look at the bottom, plus a mechanic to compression test the engine and pull an oil sample. Call it $2,000 to $3,000 all in. The oil sample alone tells you whether the engine has been babied or beaten, and the compression test tells you what the seller won't. Money well spent. And one of the experts in my comments said it best. There is no such thing as a $200 marine survey in 2026. If a broker offers you one, that is your answer because that $2,000 survey is the cheapest insurance you will ever buy on a six-figure boat. A survey that finds a $15,000 problem just paid for itself 10 times over. If this is the kind of stuff nobody else will tell you straight, before you sign anything, hit subscribe. There's a lot more boats coming, and I take every one of them apart like this. All right, so here's where the costs stop being about the boat and start being about you. Then there's the check you write before you're even allowed to leave the dock. Insurance. On a boat in this range, figure roughly 1 to 1.5% of the value every year. So $2,500 to $5,000 for a nice 40-footer. But here's the trap. The older the boat, the harder it gets. A trawler over 20 or 25 years old can be tough to insure at all, and the company will demand a recent survey before they'll write a single line. Get the agreed value policy, the one that pays the full insured amount if she sinks. Not the actual cash value policy that depreciates the payout down to nothing right when you need it. In a hurricane zone, the premium can double. And if your dad wanders into one of the big direct outfits, he might get quoted $2,000 for the same coverage a specialist marine broker finds for under $1,000. Same boat, same water, twice the price just for not knowing who to call. If you're wondering how that's even legal, so is everybody else. Liveaboards pay a surcharge on top of all of it, 20 to 40%, because the company knows the boat is now a house that floats. Skip the survey to save a few $100s, and you may find your claim denied the one day you actually need it. Nobody ever adds up the small stuff, and the small stuff is where the year quietly bleeds out. The dinghy and its little outboard, which needs its own fuel and its own registration. Winterizing a diesel up north. $300 to over $1,000 before the first frost. The documentation, the registration, the holding tank pump-outs, the dehumidifier running all winter so she doesn't grow a science experiment inside. A tow membership with one of the big outfits is about $165 to $200 a year. And without it, a single tow back to the dock averages $750 billed at $250 an hour from the moment the boat leaves their dock. The old boys have a name for all of it. They say, BOAT stands for Bring Out Another 1,000. Every one of these is small. Stacked up over a year, they're another truck payment. And the last thing the broker tells your dad, the thing meant to make all this feel safe, is that a good trawler holds its value. They do not really depreciate, he says. That's half true and half a sales pitch. A clean Nordic Tug or a Kadey-Krogen does hold value better than almost anything on the water because the hull is honest and a surveyor can verify it decades later. Some of the trendier brands shed value a lot faster, but a boat is closer to a truck than a house, and a 15-year-old trawler has already taken most of its hit. The cruel part shows up the day your dad has to sell. A panic sale and a planned sale are about $25,000 apart on the very same boat. The man who has to sell by spring takes whatever the market gives him. Here's a number the broker will never volunteer. Chartering the Grand Banks, 36 down in Fort Myers, runs about $4,000 a week. If your dad would use a boat 3 weeks a year or less, it is cheaper to charter somebody else's headache than to own one. The old joke is that the two happiest days of boat ownership are the day you buy her and the day you sell her. The broker only ever talks about the first one. I put the whole buy, own, and sell system in writing. The link is below for less than a surveyor charges for 1 hour. Back to the math. So let's finally do the thing the broker hoped your dad never would. Let's add it up. The slip, $7,000 to $21,000. Insurance, $2,500 to $5,000. Fuel, a couple thousand for a single. Haul out and bottom, another few thousand. Routine maintenance, a few more. A reserve for the teak, the tanks, and the day an engine quits, several thousand averaged out. Towing, registration, the dinghy, the canvas, all the little stuff. Add it honestly, and a 40-foot trawler costs $20,000 to $44,000 a year to own. That's around 10% of the boat's value every single year, which is the old rule the whole marine trade knows, and the broker conveniently forgets to mention. The first year runs nearly double because that is when you fix everything the lipstick was hiding, replace the 20-year-old electronics, and learn the boat's secrets the hard way. A retired captain who tracked every penny on a $700,000 trawler landed right around 6% a year, and that is a man who does his own work. Your dad on an old 40-footer, he pays others to fix. He is at the high end of that 10%, not the low end. So that $89,900 boat on the dock, over a decade aboard, your dad spends another $250,000 on top of the sticker. The sign told the truth about exactly one number. Now, I'd never leave you scared without a way out, so here is what your dad does before he signs anything. 1. Hire his own surveyor, accredited, no exceptions, and never the one the broker recommends. 2. Put his own eyes on the fuel tanks in the engine room. A dry bilge and aluminum tanks are worth more than a fresh coat of wax. 3. Budget 10% of the price every year and keep a $10,000 to $15,000 fund on the side for the first 2 years, because that is when it all comes due. 4. On the coast, take the single engine over the twins and pocket the difference. 5. Walk away from tired teak decks unless he has already priced the $30,000 fix into his offer. Do those 5 things, and the dream stays a dream instead of becoming the financial disaster everybody warned the retirees about. And if you want to know what I would actually do with my own 40 years of savings, here it is. I would not chase the prettiest boat on the dock. I would buy the boring one with the dry bilge, the truck counter engine, and the maintenance records 2 inches thick. And I would hand 1/3 of the purchase price to my surveyor and my first-year fund before I handed 1 dime to the man in the polo shirt. Because the expensive boat is not the one with the highest sticker. It is the cheap one that got lipsticked, and you only find out which is which behind the panel after the check clears. So that 1987 Grand Banks glowing in the evening light with the $89,900 sign. She might be a fine boat. But now you know the sign was the cheapest thing about her, and the real price was never written down anywhere your dad could see it. Full playbook is in the link if you want it. Now, the part the broker really doesn't want you watching is what he does to that exact boat the other 11 times she didn't sell. I broke down every one of his moves in this next video. It's on screen right now. Go watch it before you walk another dock.